No, that was the first time I'd ever seen a house that big. I had only been the biggest house we'd had like 2,500 square feet. That's like including the porch and the veranda and the garage and like half the neighbor's house. So I had never seen a house that big. Is that the actual picture of the house? Are we recording? Oh, all right. So how to buy your dream home mansion how to buy a dream home mansion by trading for signs. How to trade signs for a mansion. How to get into a house. This is really about how to buy. Are we recording right now? This is how to buy a dream house, guys. We have how are we buying these houses that we use, these special needs headquarters that we use. This is not a long-term solution. The museum that we're setting up right now, we're doing the same thing with, but we're doing that with an office space, an actual retail space, which is not going so well because we're not having visitors come in, and we're not going to be like, we don't even want to be doing that. So why are we getting a space like that? I think it's better to stick with a house or like an X-Men, like the Charles Xavier, the X-Men house, a mansion like that. I think that might be something we do. But if you want to get a mansion, you want to get to, a serious mansion, 10, 15, 20,000 square feet or whatever you want, a multi-million-dollar mansion, all right? And you want to get it zero down. You want to be able to go get it right now. I believe this is the only training on the planet. Yes, I said, look this up before I say that. Hey, did you do that? Okay, I think this is the only training on the planet. I'm pretty sure where we have not only are we going to show you how to do it, but we have multiple people doing it. I'm actually shooting it from a house where this is being done right now. This isn't a mansion. But, and most of the houses, the special needs houses are not mansions, although we're in the process. There's a house in Carmel, Indiana, that is it's a Homerama house. Everybody knows where the house is. It's in the very same neighborhood that the house that we're about to, that I was talking about earlier. It's a house where we're looking at securing it. I don't know. It might not go through because it depends on the house, but we're actively doing this right now. It's very easy to do. It's easy to set up. Honestly, it sounds cooler than it really is because in many cases, once you get your business going, you probably don't want to do this, but at least this is an option. So how did Beautiful Awesome make it rain before his OnlyFans account? Oh man, that's not, you guys giving away putting the cat out of the bag here. How did Beautiful Awesome make it rain before his OnlyFans account? Good question. Great story behind the mansion train. Green light, junior high folk. You actually took notes from when I said that? Okay, so if you guys don't know the whole story, how many of you have already heard me say it? Because some of you guys have already seen this house, right? I know you already seen it. So this house I still actually have. When I was in junior high, they were building this neighborhood right across the street from where I was in junior high. And I remember seeing that our uncle, when he came, the first book they had him read as part of his English classes, which did not work. I barely understand them still. But there's a book, The Great Gatsby. And in The Great Gatsby, one of the literary lessons is the green light that Jay Gatsby sees on the other side of the dock. It's where Daisy lives. It's this green light he constantly chases. It's one of the last things he sees in his life before he dies, but he never gets to it. It's something that he sees that he wants to chase. This is exactly how this happened. They were building this beautiful house. It was the best house in the entire neighborhood. It was these multi-million-dollar mansions, right? And I'd seen that house again and again. I told this story many times, so I'll do the fast version of this. As they were building that house, I used to go in that house. I was in junior high. I'd go in that house every day. We would ride our bikes there. I'd go to that house. I'd say, man, I'm going to buy this house. I'm going to buy this house. Just, I didn't realize it, but affirmations, right? Just, speaking it into existence. And I remember when this was like so far out, we were living in a studio apartment at that time, and this was like so far outside of our price range. But one day when they were building this, we were reading, I just did a report on The Great Gatsby. We had to read it for school, and I had actually talked about the green light and all the symbolism that it meant. And I got an A on my paper, and my teacher's like, oh, that's amazing. But I told her, like, I've read through this book. My uncle used to always have us say, my life all sport has got to be like this, and a 45-degree angle, moving your finger up. And that's how everyone's life, he'd always say that. Like, the way to look at America is your life should always be moving up. And I say that to you guys, all of you, no matter where you're at. The whole point of this process of Big RIA stuff, Income Ascension, is from now on, this training, this material, your life you should never go backwards. Never have a smaller house, never have a not nice, always have nicer cars, nicer clothes, nicer house. From now on, never move backwards, right? It's like the top thing we say. I think are you having a question? No. If you do, you could raise your hand or just shout it out. The thing I'd say though, is that when I really knew it was my destiny, was that day when I got that A on that paper, I went and by the dock on this, the house is on a lake, and right at the dock, right after school, they were doing this construction, and I could see what light, they had that strobe light that I was showing you earlier. Sometimes they shine it up. Ever since then, since I've been junior high, I've never seen them do a green light before. It's usually white or it's some other type of color. It's never green. That was the only day in all these years, even to this day, because sometimes they put that light up, I never saw it as a green light. I knew it was my destiny, man. I knew it. When I started making money, this is when I first got that house. I'd started making money, and I was driving by that neighborhood. I used to drive by that neighborhood all the time because once they were done with the neighborhood, once they were done with that house, they locked it up, and I wasn't able to get into it. And I was just like, oh man, I'd walked by that lake so many times. I'd walked on the outside of it so many times, but I wasn't able to get in now, like legally. I wasn't legally able to get in before, but at least it was unlocked, And so I hadn't gotten that house in years, and somebody had bought it and moved into it, and I was driving my car. This is how, man, if you focus on something, it's like we talk about the great alignment, the universe will come with you, man. It was a high frequency thought for me. I didn't realize this at the time, but I remember driving my car and I saw this guy walking his dog dog, but he was on the ground like you're making a snow angel, and he wasn't moving, and he was holding the leash of his dog, and his dog was like at the very end of the leash, like jumping and barking and yelping. It looked weird. It was like a guy was making a snow angel, but he wasn't moving, and he wasn't a kid. So I stopped my car. I get out. It's totally black ice on the pavement. So I get out. I'm like, you okay? And he's like, no, I can't move him. I can't move. I don't know what to do. I'm just like, okay. So I'm sitting there like, man, what am I gonna do? So I'm trying to pick this guy, but he like his back is hurting. He can't move. But it's happened to him before. And the easiest way, I would have picked him up fireman style, but the easiest way to get him was like husband and bride style, right? So I'm holding him in front of me. So I'm holding him, and then he's holding his dog, and we're all like slowly walking across the street. My car's still running at this point. So I'm walking, and I ask him, which one's your house? And as we're going down that house, as we're getting closer and closer, I'm like, which one's your house? He's like, that one. And I was like, no way. No freaking way is he about to point to that house. He pointed to that house, and I'm like, oh man. And as I opened his front door, I realized I had been in this house hundreds, maybe thousands of times, man. I knew every inch of that house, but I'd never been in it when it was done. This is the first time. And what are the chances that now I'd be holding the owner of the house, that man, the husband and bride style, as I walk in? So he walked in, and I sat him down on his couch, and I was sitting there, and for the first time I ever looked, it was the first time since the house was done that I ever looked out, like with windows and everything. I was always on the outside looking in. I was on the inside looking out that time. And it was everything I thought it would be. It was like, I just turned 20, and I just started making money. Yeah, well, this is something I only tell like personal. I only tell like you guys, and you guys have already seen this house, because when I was sitting there talking, as I was sitting there looking outside the window, the guys, he's feeling a lot better. And I'm sitting there looking out the window, and I said, and I told him the whole story. I said, I have a confession to make. And he's like, what's that? I said, this house was actually like my dream house. It's been my dream house since I was in junior high, and I've walked by this thousands of times. I've stalked this house in a way that you should actually be like kind of concerned about. Like, this is my dream house, the dream house that I want to buy. And I'm going on. His wife had come up at that point, and we were all talking, and they both look at each other, and he's like, you got to be kidding. I'm like, no, why? He's like, we're getting ready to sell this house. What? I was like, oh my gosh, we got to talk about something. I didn't have the money and the resources, but I told him what I was doing at that time. I was making money. I was already in companies. I'd done real estate deals and stuff. So I had money. I had great income. I just didn't have good money, and I didn't have good credit and stuff. But we talked for about 5 minutes, and he agreed. The purchase price was about $1 million. I was going to put a chunk of money down that I didn't have. I told him I'm about to make it. But we sat there, we had a handshake deal. And I remember thinking, what an amazing thing. My car is still running in the street. And this is what I say to all of you. And I was saying this earlier to Zach as well. It's the same thing you've got to do, man. You have got to start thinking outside of where you want. My number one focus, especially with the reason why our heroes with special needs do so well, is because they know the darkness. They know what it's like to have that contrast. They're grateful for the opportunities. You've got to be in that same place, man. Wherever you want to be, think about it constantly. Take your frequency of thought up. You should be, your thoughts should get you high. They should give you chills and butterflies. And when you do that, it might seem like nothing's happening. Like for me, for years and years and years, I went by that house for about 7 years, 8 years, maybe 9 years, before it was about 7 years that I hadn't been able to get in that house, but I'd ride my bike by it. I'd drive my car by it. As soon as I could drive, I was driving by it. I'd run by it. I was just obsessed with that house, right? And then all of a sudden, serendipity, right? Universe aligns and things came in my way. What are the chances? I still think about this. So I think about it. I get butterflies and chills now. And within 5 minutes, he said, yeah, we can do a sale like this. No problem. His wife is like, yeah, we can. They were like, if I had met them any other way, it would have been like weird or whatever, but they were like, yeah, let's do it. So now you guys know what she was laughing when I said how old I was, because what happened, my house got raided. I ended up losing all my money. And when that happened, after I bought that house, he called me up and he's like, do you need more time? Do you need more everything? And I remember when he said that to me, I remember thinking, and this is like the lesson I was saying earlier when we were talking, when you know what your destiny is, it changes everything. Because when he said to me, do you need more time? Do you want to back out? I understand that you just lost, you're in a tight spot right now. And when he said that to me, before he said that to me, I was thinking, I got to work something out. I got to talk to him. I got to arrange my payments. But when he said that to me, and I remember he said, I was so inspired when I met you and I talked to you about you talking about how this house was your destiny. And I thought, man, what are the chances? Because I'm trying to sell this house to somebody comes and helps me just at the right time, and they want to buy this house, and I want to like all these things have to align. And when he started saying that to me, I was like, you know what? This is my destiny. No, fuck that. I'm gonna keep doing it. I don't have the money. The reason why I needed to make 25 grand a month when I didn't have any money was partly because of this, also because I had money for the business that I had to pay those loans back. I paid everybody back except the bank. The bank called the money due. I told them to wait. I would have paid them if they didn't wait. The reason I say that is nobody's ever lost money on me. And even in his case, I didn't have the money, and he knew I didn't have the money. He's like, Azam, I got to tell you, if it was anybody else, I don't think they'd do it. He's like, but you're going to figure it out. So, if you need any help or anything, just let me know. But I thought, no, you're right. I ain't no thing, man. I'll get it right back up. And that's why I say 100%, because how crazy is it to go out and start going from zero, and you're on the news and all this crazy shit's happening, to go out and start making 25 grand a month basically from zero. But you know what? It's like nothing now, right? You guys are doing this. We got heroes doing this left and right. So forget the 25 grand a month. You should go for 50. 50, 100 grand a month. That should be your goal. If you're hungry, you'll go out and you'll make it happen. And you just got to get into it, man. That was the first deal I ever did. I never came back, and that house, I think everyone pretty much has seen it or has been there, because the house that we're in the process by now is in that same neighborhood. It's on the other side of the lake now, and that house is gorgeous too. It's better than this house, and that's going to be a really cool house if we can arrange that deal. But basically, that's the first time I'd done it. I did it accidentally, but now we've got a whole process down where we've got, I don't know how many, Anna's got a couple houses she's bought like this, and honestly, it doesn't really make sense to do this after you have your business going, but at the beginning, it's just a really cool thing to do. Here's what you're doing basically. You're putting a model in place. Do we have more stuff to say? Business leverage, after Ray, destiny. And you was my destiny. When you know what your destiny is, it changes everything. This concept, okay, so you were talking earlier about this. This is something we've been talking a lot about. Well, the question is, how come everybody doesn't do this? Because if what I'm saying right now, like let's say the LC's out there, somebody's out there hearing this thing, oh, that's a bunch of fucking bullshit, awesome. If what I'm saying is true, honestly, I really want to invite that skepticism they would call it. It's just LC stuff. If what I'm saying is even a little bit true, you could go out and buy a mansion immediately, right? So why doesn't everybody do that? This is why. The Sopranos, this is, they call it and we're calling it the LC ROI, but it is this idea of the Sopranos. That's actually something I learned from you earlier. I stopped watching the show till the end, but there's the Tony Soprano, the famous show The Sopranos. He used to see a psychiatrist, this woman, a therapist, and Dr. Melfi was her name. And he sees her throughout the whole show. The show was like on for 5 or 10 years, like 7, 8 years, 9 years, whatever. The entire show, he saw the psychiatrist, right? And why the last scene they have, the director or the creator of that show, David Chase, said this was like the most important scene of the entire series, one of the most important scenes, because this was someone who was it's unusual for a mobster to see her. They had this really weird relationship where they were actually like having sex at one point. They were romantic with each other, and then she had to go in like witness protection or something. There's all kinds of stuff. She knew what he was, that he was like a mobster. What was their last scene? What happened at the end? How did their relationship end? It ended because after all these years, at the very end of the series, when the final few episodes, she realizes from a mentor of hers who tells her that there are some people, therapy helps people that are, far gone or off track. It helps them get on track. But there's some people that are so far off track that they use it to get better. You're helping them get better at getting worse. Like it's not helping them. And she's like, I don't believe that. Everyone needs therapy. Everybody's what we call reachables and unreachables. Although I hate to use that word unreachable, but that's a term you guys have been using a lot. We're saying almost unreachable, right? But I agree with exactly what she said. She's like, Tony Soprano might be a mobster, but he needs help. But the point was that some people are so far gone that they don't even realize they're doing this. But he's such a psychopath, such a sociopath, that he's going to use your therapy to fake empathy, to just get a lot better at being a lot worse. And you are not just enabling, but you're an accomplice in all the negativity and the nastiness that he creates. So she doesn't believe this at first, but then she goes back and she starts thinking about it, and she's like, wait a second, he came to me because he was cheating on his wife. He wanted to fix that. Now he's much worse. He cheats on her all the time, and she knows about it. I mean, that's entirely worse. He came to me, he wanted to be a better father. Well, he's a much worse father. His daughter was in love with this guy, and he actually went and got the guy killed. And he's in every way, he's a much worse father. In every way, he's a much worse husband. What about his criminal stuff? He wanted to get better at that. He's a much better criminal because he's able to fake empathy. He took all the things he took from her, and you get what I'm saying? He's using them in a way that just helps him. You are helping him. You're helping him get a lot worse. And the LC, when I heard that, I thought, man, it's just like the LC. Some people just need a little bit of help and they get back on track. But other people are so far gone, and we see this everywhere. And the deal we're doing right now, and the house we're buying, so this guy's gone through us. He's seen us buy 2 houses the same exact way. And when I say mansions, I'm talking about like $1.5 to $2.5 million, houses that he's seen purchased. And his takeaway is, oh, that doesn't work, or that doesn't work in this area, or that's a special situation. He's so far gone that when you show him the same thing that you or anybody else could use, that you guys are using to go out and change lives, they have, not only does it not help them, but they'll bring you down. They'll just get better at getting worse and bringing you down. The same as she's sitting there thinking and realizing that he's a worse father, a worse husband, a much worse criminal, and she realizes that he can't help it. That she, in her mind, he can't. That this is like, he doesn't even mean to do this. And that's when she's like, I can no longer see you. She never tells him about all this stuff. But this is the idea that when I think about this concept has been on my mind a lot ever since we were talking about this, and you showed me those clips. It's a weird thing because some people are not, they take the same exact. These videos are a great example. People, just look at the comments, or people have great, amazing feedback. We get amazing things happen. They take the same thing. They go out, they change lives. The same material other people take it. Oh, that doesn't work in my area. That would never happen. Or blah. They find some way to get get even worse. They take the same thing and they bring themselves down, and they'll bring your frequency of thought down as well if you let them, if you don't catch the son on sooner. The son paid the father off. Actually, when I first had this, there's another house in that same neighborhood that I bought pretty much the same way. But the person I worked with was the son of this seller. So a couple years later, when I had gotten back on track and everything, and I paid the house off and about, my uncle told me this. He said, I don't know how you're making money. I'm probably scamming people, but whatever you're doing is working. You need to pay your house off as quickly as possible. It's some of the best advice I ever got. I paid that house off in about 18 months after my house had got raided. Well, he was so blown away. The seller was like, man, I can't believe it. He's like, this is amazing. Can you mind working with my son and helping him out, because he's trying to get into business and stuff too. And his son was a little bit of an LC at first, but then he got hungry and he got back on track when his father got sick, and he realized that they didn't have as much money as he thought, and he got hungry, right? He had to make things happen. And so he said to me, you know what my dad always said is that what you did in like that 18 months, it took them like 25, 30 years, 40 years. Now, I didn't have the vocabulary or the mental, planning to realize that's social mobility and income ascension, but that's exactly what his father realized. He's like, hey, this guy, if you just do what he did, you can pay off a really nice house and you can have, you can live really well. So that's why his father wanted him to work with me. So we went to a house that was like 2 houses over and across the street, and we did the exact same thing with that house. That house was going for sale. I said, look, why don't you, if you want to get a house in this neighborhood, just put out flyers for every house. Hey, I'm wanting to buy a house in this neighborhood. I'll make a cash offer, or we'll work out some sort of trade or whatever. Just let me, if you want to sell your house anytime coming up, just let me know. And it was one of the neighbors. So we talked to the neighbor. We did almost the exact same arrangement, and his son actually went and put the model in place, the lender agent model, and we used that money to pay this house off. So it's really simple what we do here. Go to bigria.com, by the way. Awesome mail, Rams and KO. Did we already do this? Bigria.com, the world's largest organization of special needs business owners and real estate investors that we're building. The number one site on the number one channel on YouTube for Indiana real estate. All kinds of stuff. Go to bigria.com. Bigria.com. Do it now. So what happened here is that he was able to go out and do the exact same thing. What we're doing here, are we covering this? I don't know. How much of this are we keeping in the class? Is this a class or like this is a few things we've talked about before. This, the idea of how you want to lead by example. All of you really need to be thinking about the future generations, right? It doesn't matter. Some heroes are younger, some are much older. It doesn't matter. You really got to be thinking about when you do this, you're creating social mobility, you're creating income ascension. It doesn't have to be a mansion, but you're able to, one of the first things we need to do is get a house and pay it off. All kinds of beautiful things happen as far as your mobility, the stability that you have with your income class. Just get a house and pay it off. It's a top thing we got to do. This is Carl Jung. A child certainly allows himself to be impressed by the grand talk of his parents, right? The parents say stuff, oh, save money, save for a rainy day, all that stuff. But do they really imagine he is educated by it? Actually, it is the parents' lives that educate the child. What they add by word at best serves only to confuse them. They're watching what you're doing. So many parents, especially like with heroes stuff we work on, always want us to put these better habits in their kids, but they're not trying to put those better habits in themselves. The best thing to do is to go out and start doing this on your own. So it doesn't matter how old you are, but the first thing you've got to do, don't expect somebody in your family to do this if you're not willing to do this. So go out, make it happen, and realize that every moment you're doing something, somebody is looking up to you. We talk about parents, peers, and proteges. Everyone has proteges, even ones that you might not know, ones that aren't alive yet. We'll record videos like this. People who don't even know you are going to be listening to your audios and videos later on. So always be thinking, just think about what example you set for other people. And the number one, when people tell me, oh, it's so hard to find good help, I've never had a problem finding good help. You don't have a problem finding good help. You haven't had a problem finding good help. If you're good help worthy, right? Be good help. Be what you seek, and everything happens. The last thing I'd say, I hear this idea that you can't go out and get mansions like this or can't. We've done this multiple times. We got this down to a science. Mark Twain, very important to hear this. Keep away from people who try to belittle your ambitions. Small people always do that, but the really great make you feel that you too can become great. The best way to tell how somebody is just ask yourself, how do they make you feel? Smart people will make you feel smart. Funny people will make you feel funny. It's interesting. They'll make you feel like you're funny. Look at these like Stephen Colbert or Jon Stewart or Trevor Noah and these people. Whenever they have these like stiff politicians, these guys on, you're like, wow, I didn't know that politician was so funny. They're not that funny. It's that the guy asking the questions is so skilled that they make everyone around them seem funny, right? You make everyone, there's a great quote we have, that picture we have with that little girl holding the mom's hand, and she's like, why is it some people are awful, mean, and terrible, and others are pleasant, wonderful, and kind? And the mom says, because we all make people feel the way we feel. We all want people to feel how we feel. This is not difficult to do, man. This is really easy to do. We're going to go, you're basically just putting a model in place, and then you're trading the model for that. How much this we get into? How to get your mansion now? Okay, so one of the first things to do is high frequency thinking. First of all, get pictures. Every one of you, if you want to do this, go out and get pictures of the houses you want. And it's a really interesting where people will go like, well, I shouldn't go to that neighborhood. Let me just go to let me, be more realistic. Man, don't do that. Why limit your thinking? Why handcuff your thinking, right? Just swing for the fences. The absolute craziest houses, pick those houses that are anywhere within like a driving distance or walking distance or whatever, with that's geographically reasonable, right? Get those pictures up. Just get those thoughts in your mind. Imagine what it's like living there to a point where you can actually feel it. You can see it. You can smell it. All your senses get involved. It becomes a high frequency thought. Have pictures all around of that. Go through the vision and mission board. We talked about that earlier in the copywriting class. What you want should be obvious to anybody who walks into your life, walks into your room, talks to you for a few seconds. It should be obvious what you want. Now, that's what we want to do to get your thoughts in the right place, right? Now, the next part is to do the model. We've talked about the numbers we have to get to 10, 30 grand a month, whether it's the agent fist fight, like you were talking about earlier, lease options, signs, lender agent, whatever model we pick. If we don't have one established yet, just do a GXM, get the numbers established so that you know what your metrics are, right? So you know how much you have to make 10 to 30 grand a month. And then you start doing the math. What would it take to start buying these houses? So start talking to these houses. That house that you venture, the $6 million house, don't shy away from that. Call them up. Talk. Who cares? What do you have to lose, right? Call them up and talk to them and just kind of do an idea of, well, what would the payments be on a house like that? If you were to buy it on contract, and they may laugh at you, who cares? Just talk to them. What would it be like if it was on contract? Or if we did a lease option on a $6 million house, what would it be like? Just start doing the math just so you can see the pictures. On Zillow, they'll tell you what the payments would be if you put down like 10, 20%, put down 5%, 10%, just get an idea what the payments would be so that you can start understanding what your model, what you have to produce in the model in order to do that. When we put a model in place, like the lender agent model, we should be able to say, I need 3 calls a week in order to pay off the house to pay that monthly payment. I need 10 calls a week to make twice the payment that's owed every month. You get what I'm saying? Those are the numbers that we need. We put a model in place and we're going to trade the money from that model or the equity from that model. There's different ways we set this up to apply for monthly payments. Now, what if the person doesn't want monthly payments? Well, then we generally, if they don't want monthly payments, we don't work with a house like that. So this is going to be some form of seller financing, but they do have equity in the business. This is where it comes down to how well they trust you and how well you establish the relationship. Now, if you do this math a little bit, you start realizing, wait a minute, why are you even doing that? Why not just go out and buy the house? Or why not just wait a little bit and you'll have enough money saved up? I agree. That's why I said this sounds cooler than it is, because after a while, it's like, wait a second, it's pretty easy to do it without doing that. So there's different ways of setting this up. Like with the deal we have right now, we're actually giving equity in the business, which I think we're going to talk about in a second. It's just a cool thing to test, to see it out. If nothing else, what it helps you do is it helps you understand that you can go out, put out a couple signs, and that produces enough money for you to have your dream car and your dream house. That's all it takes. It's just like, you need to start realizing that all you need to have the dream life you want is a certain number of calls, a certain number of transactions. And when you can create that, then you know what your floor policies are. You know what you need to do to pay off your house is get 11 calls, 20 calls, or whatever. You get what I'm saying? That's what we need. So do the math, get the models, begin screening sellers. All right, once matched, then use the model or trade for equity in the model. These are different ways of using that as a down payment, right? The equity. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing that right now. First, if you're starting out right now, just get the model in place, get your 5, 10, 15, 20 grand, 30 grand a month. And then we can start looking at houses and you can start saying, you know what? This model would apply for that, because then we can start talking to the sellers, open that dialogue and talk to them about trading. Later on, when we start adding our propaganda package, our compliance curve items, stuff like that, these deals are a lot easier, especially with these high-end houses that don't sell as fast either. And these people don't usually need the money and they do want the business. And this is what allows you to opens up all kinds of opportunities for you. So this was from Anton. We talked about Anton Chekhov, the greatest playwright, one of the great Russian writer. And he talked about this idea of how a man transforms himself. Write about this young man. He was asked about how to write a good character. He said, write about this, how this young man squeezes the slave out of himself drop by drop, and how one fine morning he wakes up to find the blood coursing through his veins is no longer the blood of a slave, but that of a real human being. You had actually sent this to me and I thought, wow, that is exactly when I said, what's the secret to doing this? And that's it, bit by bit. So first, start with the pictures, right? Just bit by bit. Although you may seem like, we were talking earlier about how it's like totally crazy to get a mansion, but all of a sudden, what you're doing for the heroes that are actually executing, you'll see people on our team, they are in totally different places than they thought they'd ever be. And the way to get there is bit by bit by bit. It's like the ship of Theseus. If you change one board on a ship, have you changed the ship? No. But if you keep doing that, eventually the ship is an entirely different ship, and there's nothing in that ship that was from the previous ship. Is that a new ship? Most people would say yes. But at what point was it a new ship? Was it at 30% or 50%? And whatever number you say, that means that at some point, the difference between it being a new ship and not a new ship was a single board, right? But that's what we want to do, is ship of Theseus, your improvement. Just do one thing at a time. Just Just start getting pictures up. Just get your vision board, your mission board, get your policy sets, the basic things we talk about. Get this stuff in place. Start looking at mansions, right? If nothing else, it'll bring your frequency of thought up. You'll start realizing you can do this. And for the heroes here, you guys have seen how easy this is to get done. And you start, man, when you start realizing what signs or a few phone calls or a few models or a few JVs, like how easy it is to be in the 1% and to live that life, it's really remarkable how little you have to do to make shit happen. It doesn't take this like enormous amount of hustle. It's pretty cool stuff. Okay, so here's some example of the email. So here's an example of the exact. I asked you to send me the exact ones you were using. So you guys are both using these, right? And yeah. So hi, what was your response around this? So this is how you got that first house. Okay, so this was what worked on that last property. So I got to take this. Am I getting blood on here? Is this blood? Right. So this is how you got that first house, right? Okay. Hi there. This is about your house on Elm Street. I have a mortgage, real estate, construction, commercial, whatever, apartment building, whatever you're using, however your model is or the transactions you're using. And I was wondering if you, and by the way, the mortgage business is the lender agent model. I was wondering if you would want to trade your house for equity in my business. You would get ownership and dividends just like stock, and it would be more than rent. If that's possible for you, if that's impossible for you, that's okay. But if you want to talk more about this, please give me a call. Please give me a call. All right. That's one. Is there another one? Is this, you're listed on Elm. Will the seller do a trade? I own a few apartment buildings. Thanks. That's the one that you got the 2 calls on? Yeah, perfect. I love it. And you're doing the apartment buildings with the pet policies. My gosh, how to get a mansion with pet policies. That should be the title of this class. Hi there. You're listed on Elm. I'm looking for a house like that. 7,000 square feet house in Wildwood between 1 to 1.5 million. I want to buy the house by trading my blank business. So whatever, like my mortgage, my real estate, my apartment, my banking business, whatever. And I could still pay you for it, and I could still pay you. So would a trade like that work for this seller or another one with a similar house? Thanks. This was to the realtor, to the agent. Okay. So each of these is producing about 20 to 30%. So 1 out of 3, 1 out of 2 emails is getting back, or that was a text. The middle one was a text. Okay. So this is an example. Hopefully you're getting this. Are we still recording? I don't know. Okay. The whole point here is all of you are going to go out right now. We're going to do it. You guys knew the spoiler alert, right? So we got to go out. If you don't have a house targeted, you're going to target a house right now. We're going to take a couple minutes, target a house that you want, a dream house that you want, and figure out exactly, kind of get idea of what the payments are going to be at. If you have a model in place, right, then let's talk about what you need to do for that model to produce that house, to acquire that house. If you don't have a model in place, just go by the numbers of what you need to have in place, what needs to happen for you to buy this house. Swing for the fences. I want to see badass houses, man. Don't what you really think is like, wow, that's my, like, when I think about living in that house, it gives me chills. It gives me butterflies. When I think about, and it doesn't have to be a mansion. Maybe it just has a backyard. Maybe it has a swing, or it's something that excites you. What living condition, what living situation excites you, right? Have that where it's got to be a high frequency thought, right? So every one of you pick a high frequency thought house. Now we're going to figure out the payments. We're just going to do this off the top of our head. Just take 1% of nothing else. And then we're going to start talking about how a model could pay for that. It doesn't, right now, like I said, it doesn't even matter if we do seller financing on these deals, because you can go out and buy the house anyway. But at least this helps you see how we can start trading and how we can open dialogue with sellers, with agents, and we can start talking about trading assets, because now we have a totally different conversation when we're talking about trading assets. Like, oh, I see how I can use a couple signs here. I can use this one deal here. I can double this business, use the money I get from that, and use it to pick up this house. You get what I'm saying? This is how we can start. One of the ways when we start looking at things like this, we want to start doing double payments and start doing more, accelerated payoffs, velocity banking, as some people call it, very quick way of paying down our mortgage. When we're talking about mansions, paying down a regular house is pretty easy. We just put a model in place and accelerate the payoff on that. Either way, what we want to be able to do quickly is to get a house or pay out, a new house, or pay off our current house as soon as possible. And then we start thinking about these high frequency thoughts. How do we acquire these things? How do we upgrade our life really easily with basic models, putting these in place, right? So first thing, does that make sense? The model clear, it's on the board right there. So we're going to go with that, and then we're going to begin again our conversations, and we're going to see how many of us have at least a pending potential transaction that we can do by financing this. If you watch this, same thing you do. First, get houses. Start thinking about in terms of that. Start putting yourself in there. Make sure you got these high frequency thoughts in your life, and you're starting to live your life that you want to have, even if you're just thinking about it, even if it's just in your head. What you think about changes what you're doing, because now as you live your life, even though it looks like you're doing the same thing, like driving a bus or sweeping floors or being a plumber, whatever you're doing, you're doing it with much higher frequency thinking. You're doing it with a totally different energy. You're doing it with much more enthusiasm. Remember, enthusiasm makes up for everything, right? And then, so first thing is we start getting the houses, getting them on there. Oh, no, I'm not going to use my OnlyFans account. I'm not going to use it to buy these houses. All right, look. So first thing is go out, get these houses, get them around you, get into them, start talking about them, have pictures of them all up around you, right? Get that your high frequency thinking. Second is start looking at those payments. Start thinking, do I have a model in place? Okay, if I do or don't. If you do, start looking at how you could take a segment of that model and how that would work, how much it would take to pay that house off, or at least to start making that payment. Then we start looking at, if you don't have a model in place, what would you have to do? And how many calls out, how many outbound, inbound calls would you need? How many signs, for example, or whatever, would you need, emails, to start paying a house off like that off? And you start realizing, you know what? I don't really have to do that much to go get this multi-million-dollar mansion. I really don't have to. It doesn't really take that much more than what I'm doing right now. And then you start getting closer and closer to your goal, right? We talk about the million pieces rule. The goal may seem like it's really far, but if you break the distance between you and that goal into a million pieces, it becomes really easy to start seeing, oh, I can pick these pieces up really quickly, right? It's exactly what we do. This is not that difficult, man, but you gotta follow these steps, right? So now you've got a house and you've got kind of a basic plan. Now you start having conversations, talk to the agents, talk to the sellers, talk to these people, and start asking about trading. Just curious about trading. One of the questions we often have, and one of the things we say on our signs is, look, here's a house, willing to trade. And people are like, well, what do you want to trade? We always ask them, well, what do you have, right? So we are very open to trade. We always want to do trade. Something you should be talking about a lot. It's one of the best possible ways to start building your business and doing all kinds of things. But right now, specifically with the mansions, it's easy to start understanding how to start building equity and how you can quickly and easily, how you can buy these houses, at least build enough cash, generate enough cash to start buying these houses. The biggest problem you're going to have, we're not going to talk about this now. We'll talk about this later, but if a business is relatively new, why would they trust you? Why would they trust you to have that? That's why we got to build our authority, our compliance stuff, and get all these things going. I love this shit, man. I really do. It's amazing. It's a really cool way. How cool is it? You can do what takes people centuries and you can do it immediately. I love it. That's how you buy mansions. You can trade them with signs and all kinds of other stuff. Any other questions right now? We're totally clear. We're all going to break and do this. If you're watching this, go do this right now. By today, you should have at least even it may not be a clear plan, at least some kind of roadmap on how you can get your mansion. I want pictures. Send them to me. I love you.